Great, thanks. And let's get started. So we had the momentous decision to drop church from our name and make us Vancouver Unitarians. And now we're trying to figure out what that means in great detail. So that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. So Sean's going to start us off.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't get to stay for the whole meeting. I need to go into the worship services team, which is scheduled to meet right now as well. But I offer you these words from Julian Soto. Can we develop the skill of remembering the future? Can we commit to build the community that will extend into a time that we know only by memory because it will outlast us? Memorize the compass points of the day yet to come, the truth, the love, the fire, and the endless yes of the horizon. Shake the scales from your imagination. Reach, stretch, and rise. There is no more time for pretending that everything can be all right without your care, without your attention. Remember the day toward which we gather, the tomorrow toward which we advance. It is with your actions now that you engage that muscle memory, that sense of smell, the ragged velvet feel of a day that you have never lived. But it is also your day, so remember it well. So I wish you all a good meeting.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the board formed a working group, which consists of Paul, myself, Karen Bartlett, Christian, Derek, and Casey, and Sean. So we decided we want to strike when the iron's hot. I hope that's an okay expression to use. And make some progress on where we go with our decision to change to Vancouver Unitarians. So we had a meeting last week and we came up with some ideas and we want to run those by you to see what you think. So I'm going to turn that over to Christian. He's got some slides for us. And then after that, there'll be time to get your feedback and for any questions that you might have. Take it away, Christian.
Great, thank you. Okay, so okay, I'm hopefully in your screen and you can hopefully see the slides. So here we go. We're at an interesting point. Lots is happening. Lots has been happening the last few years. And of course, you all remember that at the AGM, everybody was asked about what do we call ourselves. And there was a vote. And 77% of that vote voted in favor to use Vancouver Unitarians as our legal name. And that was something I've been waiting for a long time as the IT guy. So I'll tell you my angle on all this. My bias here is on the IT side of things because I'm in the background working on projects to clean up our email and move us over from Microsoft to Google fully, and our files and our Google Workspace account and our website and all the technical side of things. And I've been holding off on a ton of things because what do we call ourselves has been in play for a long time. And so there's a lot of things that are pent up and waiting to be actioned once we knew what our name was going to be. And had our name stayed the same, had the vote been under 75%, we probably would have just marched forward with ucv.im as our useful short domain, because it would have worked with our dual name. But now that we've made the decision it's not a big transition, but the vote implies that we're consolidating now to one name. And we've been multiple names for many years. So now, of course, that opens the door about what do we do about ucv.im specifically. That's the bit I'm coming in with, is the backbone of our Google system and our email and our website. So this name decision is, and there's other things going on as well. We have a new minister and we're coming out of the pandemic. So there's a lot of newness We've gone through that 3-year transition period, and we did our history wall, and we did all of our look backs. And so it really feels like we're starting a new era. I don't know if you feel that way too, but there's enough going on that's new where it feels like, well, this is an inflection point. And now we've made a decision about our name, Vancouver Unitarians. So it's also an opportunity to reestablish ourselves, to introduce ourselves to the public again, to decide how we want to introduce ourselves, how we want to present ourselves. And the bit where I've been getting stuck is ucv.im. Operationally, we need an abbreviation. It's become apparent in the last month since the vote that we can't really function without something shorter than Vancouver Unitarians. When you write text for the organization a lot, you say Vancouver Unitarians does this, that, the other. Vancouver Unitarians is it, and we meet at Vancouver Unitarians. Then we really miss UCV. We've been trying to strip it out and finding that you really need something short. And just technically, we need a short domain. UCV has grown into a super useful shortcut. For most people, it's the name of the place. When they say, I'm going to go to the service at UCV, everybody knows what they mean. And essentially, we have to think about UCV. Does it work in the future if we're not called the Unitarian Church of Vancouver anymore? And there's been people that said, well, we can rename it. We could be the Unitarian community, or Unitarian congregation, or Unitarian center. But we did discuss that. We did go all through all of that, and we decided to keep it at Vancouver Unitarians. On that note, I also appreciate that UCV is not going to go away in our membership. And I'm going to keep saying it. It's going to just come out of my mouth because it's been integral to my association with the place and the organization. So this is not about forcing everybody to change what they call the place. This is not about policing how the place is called or what people use or what terms they use. UCV is going to be around for decades. This is really about newcomers, and it's about our public facing and about our technology. And the situation we've had for the last 15 or 20 years, or however long it has been, is a little bit confusing to people who don't know. So we're Vancouver Unitarians, but we're also Unitarian Church of Vancouver. We go by UCV, but please call us Vancouver Unitarians. It's been fine, but now we've decided to not do that anymore. So that means, what do we do about something else for UCV? At this point, I'm going to hand over to Derek, if you're there.
Thank you, Christian. I just had to unmute. So yes, to be clear, we're not in any way suggesting that anyone's going to police the use of UCV. As Christian said, we're all going to continue to use it. Some people will always continue using it as their shorthand. But really, from a branding point of view and communications point of view, this is a great opportunity to unify our messaging and how we refer to ourselves. And yeah, basically move beyond this potentially confusing situation we've been in for 19 years, I think it was, since the decision was made around Vancouver Unitarians. And the thing is, UCV was very useful. It's just not, it was an abbreviation that not everyone was necessarily agreed upon what it stood for. So to give it its due, it's a short and sweet. It was reflective of our legal name, and it could be used, and we use it all through our policies and procedures, our mission statements, it all throughout the copy on the website and the newsletters, sort of interchangeably to mean either the physical place or the organization as a whole, when it didn't work in a sentence to say Vancouver Unitarians, or when we didn't want to be repetitive in saying those two longer words with more syllables. So we need to find an abbreviation that is an abbreviation for the organization when we're looking for another way a shorter way to refer to us as a group and an organization, and also refer to the place, to unify those two things. So a couple options that some people have even already started using and just sort of default thought of, VU and VanU. Um, those are the most obvious ones that jump out. Each have their pros and cons, and I don't want to like preempt the discussion because Christian and myself and the folks on the working group have been thinking about it for a little bit longer collectively. So yeah, I won't say much more about the different options that we have. We can go to the next slide there, Christian. Oh, and then, yeah, in terms of the domain, this is obviously Christian's domain, this sort of thing. But Vancouver Unitarians, we do still own it, and our legacy website with everything that has not been transferred over to the new website is still there. But it's just too long. People make mistakes or get confused when typing it in. You need to have short domains in this day and age. It's great for creating those short links that Christian loves so much. Yeah, and these can be used as well in social media. So we've already done a little bit of just cleanup of the main pages of our website to make sure we didn't have use of the word church there, or just to switch that up. And we've also swapped out in a few different places UCV as a place name. On social media, we've already been always saying Vancouver Unitarians. So we didn't really abbreviate too much on social media. So there wasn't much to change there, but we would like, it would be useful for our different social media platforms to have that abbreviation that syncs up with our legal name. And in terms of domains that are available, VU did not have any domains available. vanu.ca, we already own. Christian has snapped that up. Rather surprisingly, that one was available. And then another one that's a possibility is the VU, thevu.org. So yeah, that's based on homework that Christian and others, I think Paul maybe also looked around at some URL options. There may be others, but that's what's on the table right now. So
Okay.
this, yeah, I'll flip it back to Christian now, I think. There he is.
There I am. So yes,
I need to be able to do that.
Just wrap up on the domain. So the short domain, I had a quick look at how many times people use ucv.im since ucv.im came about because of the pandemic, because we were doing a lot more stuff online, and we were trying to encourage people to get to us quickly with our live and all our short links. And there have been many, many tens of thousands of clicks on our short links. So things like forums or visit the live stream, or and even less busy ones get a lot of clicks. So we do know that a short domain really helps us out. So in a meeting, I think it was a forum. What do we call ourselves? Forum. One of the last ones before the vote. And people were discussing the different options. What would we do if the vote was in favor of Vancouver Unitarians? What would we do with ucv.im? It was pointed out to me that .im is the Isle of Man. We're using a domain name for what is effectively a tax haven. As one of our members pointed out, was not ethically a good idea. And there was a discussion about, well, what else could we use? And what about VU? And what about VanU? So I looked it up in that moment, and I saw that vanu.ca was available, and I just booked it. It was $16, and we now have secured VanU, so that is an option for us. There's a few things I like about it. And again, I'm coming to this from the point of view of the technical side, because VU is not available. There are no 2 or even 3-letter combinations available. There are no nouns available. There are no, the gold rush is over. A lot of the good short domains are gone. If you want to have a domain suffix like .ca, and we do, having a .ca or a .com or a .org is appropriate for an organization like us. And having a .ca also gives us legal protection in that no one can ever take that domain away from us, because we are a Canadian organization, and so we are legitimately meant to be using .ca. So yes, it's a Canadian domain. It works well. It would slot write in and swap over for ucv.im. So it would involve very, very little work on the back end. Anywhere where you used to use ucv.im, you would just swap it out with vanu.ca or whatever.ca if we can find something short. And our website, our short links, our email addresses, it's kind of the backbone of our digital presence online. So having a CA is a good idea. Also, I've been thinking about this for a really long time. I've been holding off on about 10 projects because I wasn't sure that we would stay ucv.im, and I didn't want to roll out a bunch of projects and then have to do a bunch of work if the domain changed. So I knew that confidence was low that ucv.im would necessarily be guaranteed to stay, so I've been holding off. So I've been thinking about all the different possibilities. And so in my mind, I appreciate that for many of you, you've never heard of vanu.ca and never thought about it, and vanu might sound weird. And I totally get that. In my mind, I've been mulling it over for so long that I'm actually starting to dream in vanu. So in my reflections of having thought about it for a while, it does work well as a to name it as a place. So I'll meet you on Tuesday night at UCV. I'll meet you on Tuesday night at Vanu. They work in a similar kind of way. Oh, I've written some examples. The choir concert will be held in the Vanu Sanctuary at 49th and Oak. So as Derek mentioned, we have a lot of bits of text which we put in social media and on our website where we're talking about ourselves as an organization and we're talking about ourselves as a place. So you can only say, I'll meet you at Vancouver Unitarians so many times before it's a very weird sentence to keep saying, meet you at Vancouver Unitarians. Will we meet at Vancouver Unitarians? It's very long. So something like Vanu, doesn't have to be Vanu, but something like that clicks in nicely in that sentence. The members of Vanu, it also works to represent us as an organization. The members of Vanu have decided to buy a windmill. Not that we will, but I'm just putting that in a sentence. You can also say the members of Vancouver Unitarians. They both work together. So again, this piece, I think I'm back to you, Derek. Well,
yeah,
this is a
I've already said we're not going to police the use of it for many years. It's really about our communications and how we message to new folks. And there are no extra costs in doing this, although probably a little bit of, to be transparent, there'll be time. I mean, there will be time in strike and replace in a lot of our documentation, assuming we get rid of UCV. And then there's an urgency to getting on top of this now that the decision has been made, so we avoid another 19 years where we kind of have a dual name thing going on, or we're using an abbreviation where not everyone has consensus on what that abbreviation really truly stands for. So yeah, this is a great opportunity to unify our branding and communications, and to get on it now before it creates more work by delaying the implementation of the members' decision. That's it.
Yeah.
We ready to take questions, or we have one more slide there?
One more, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a kind of a bonus at the end. But just on the last thing on whether we go with this one or that one, we've had UCV, we've had Vancouver Unitarians, and we've had the Unitarian Church of Vancouver. So we're talking about consolidating and simplifying. And I'm approaching this backwards. I'm starting from the point of view of, well, what's available as our domain. So we could decide. And the other part of this is we don't know what's gonna fly. We don't know what's gonna go viral. We're not going to tell everybody, oh, you have to refer to us as this or as that. It's going to take time. Over time, new people will come and they'll start referring to it as whatever they refer to it as. We don't know whether Vanu will take or VU or one of the other ones, but we ultimately have to pick a domain. So if we pick something like vanu.ca, then it could be confusing if we also mix up different names for ourselves again. So the domain is where I'm coming from on trying to get some motion. And then the last part of this, which comes after we've settled on what to do, is that as part of the same opportunity to reintroduce ourselves, there's an open question in part of this moment about our branding. It is a different era. We are entering a kind of a new phase. We have decided to not change our name, but to consolidate to one name, which is a big moment. And so there's an open question about, well, would this also be the point where we look at our logo, where we look at our colors that we use in print and design? There's, I think a few people have suggested it might be a good time to look at that. Things like, our social media. There's been suggestions of like, why don't we get some sweatshirts? Why don't we get some new mugs? Why don't we get some branding? Why don't we advertise ourselves to the world now that we have this new minister and it's a new thing? So if we're going to push our branding and reintroduce ourselves, which we are effectively going to be doing because we have a new name, not a new name, but we have a name, do we want to freshen our look? And we do have assets. We have Marcus, who's a wonderful graphic designer, and we have, there is some energy around the place with people who are excited about refreshing somewhat some of our visuals.
Just to give a really concrete example on this, more that swag sort of sounds like merch or, t-shirts and stuff like that, which would be cool as well. But something as practical as our coffee cups, I think a good amount of them say Unitarian Church of Vancouver and actually have the chalice logo. So that I'm not suggesting we need to like get rid of cups. We are a zero waste place, but as we buy new ones, it's a chance to be on brand and not using a name that we've voted to phase out. So.
And branding is so important. Everything is to do with, well, there's just so much work that we're doing in social media and online, and how we show ourselves gives people a first impression of who we are and what we're like. So it's did everybody know that was a hand? I didn't realize that the logo was actually a hand, but it is. So that's the presentation part. Mary, do you want to take over?
I have to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Christian and Derek. That was great. And I have to say, when we had our meeting, I entered the meeting not very much in favor of Van-U. And the more we talked about it and the more I understood the implications and so on, the more I came to be quite enthusiastic about Van-U. And as Cecilia says, it does sound a bit like a university. And that was something Martha said too. But we did check it out. There's no university called Van-U. So we're clear on that. And maybe that's not such a bad thing if we're a place of learning.
There is a football club. There's a Benny plays for Van-U, which is Van-U FC. But I don't think people will necessarily confuse us with a football.
But their actual name is Vancouver Van United, I believe, football club, right?
Okay.
They do use the word united, not just you, but point taken.
Yeah. So are there any questions or comments on John?
Yeah, I think, well, my initial thought is let's go with Vanu.ca for the IT part of it, and leave all the rest of it for the discussion. I mean, we don't, just because we have Vanu.ca as our domain name doesn't need to use it in sentences or use it in conversation or refer to the place as that, because people will figure that out themselves over the long run. I don't know that having it as a domain kind of restricts us from doing other things, particularly. But I get the point of particularly your project's on hold, and there's a lot of back office work to do with the IT side of our organization, and getting this settled quickly would be a good idea. and I'm all for doing that. I think vanu.ca would be fine. And the rest of it, what we call, what people use in conversation, well, let's see what people use over the next year. It's kind of like, I remember the story of a new university where they paved all the sidewalks along the roads but didn't know where people would take shortcuts. So they didn't want to pave anything. So they just waited to see where people took shortcuts and then paved them a year later. And the branding, yeah, that's great. But that'd be a great kind of, it's not something I don't think need to do right away. I mean, we should get it going and get people thinking about it and start a conversation and see what creative ideas come forward. But it doesn't necessarily, I don't think, get in the way of us adopting vanu.ca as our domain.
Yeah, I think it's the domain. It's also probably our email addresses and a few other things. So people will get used to seeing it in those contexts, and they may decide, oh, that's a good way to call the place in the shorthand, or they may stick to whatever else. Yeah, as Christian and Derek said, we're not going to try to police that. Any other questions or comments? Elizabeth?
Yeah, well, since the forum where before the actual vote, I think that might have been 2 weeks before the actual vote, where it came up the shortened name and what would be available. What's the word, as our domain name. And you went and checked it, Christian, and you came back and said that Vanu was available. And maybe you said vanu.ca, I can't remember, but I remember the Vanu was. So I've been trying that on ever since you said that day, just how that would fit into all these different conversations I've been in and emailing back and forth. And there's things that I really like about it. And I mean, one is that it's so easy, Vanu. And just as UCV was easy to say, it does roll off the tongue. And what I find and have found for a long time is that having something that is really short to say that is identifiable is really important. And it, just like what you're saying, Vancouver Unitarians, you can only say it a few times and you just want something short. So anyway, I'm really liking Vanu, and I'm also really liking vanu.ca because I found that .im really confusing, just because I wasn't that familiar with it. And I had people asking me, what's the IM all about? And I didn't really even know how to answer the question. So anyway, that was, I really like the idea that it's so identifiable, and it's identifiable as Canadian too. I actually really like that. And being somebody who actually changed their name midway through adulthood, what I found done is actually a chosen name. And then at that point, I started using my legal first name, which is Elizabeth, and I'd never been called Elizabeth or Dunn. And what I found is that after about a year, people were just saying the right name, and it wasn't a big deal. And I suspect that it's going to be really similar with Vancouver Unitarians, that Vanu or whatever we end up calling, people are just going to jump on board because it's, why waste time on something that you can actually just agree on and move forward. So anyway, I like the idea of moving forward.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Allison?
Yeah, I was going to say, if we change the domain to Vanu, which after you've talked about it, I really quite like, does that mean that it's changed overnight and the IM has gone, or do you keep the two things going at the same time?
We keep them going. Yep. So we will own VancouverUnitarians.ca forever, and we can own UCV.im for as long as we want to pay the $24 a year to keep it.
I could see that people will know the IM business and will get a bit fed up suddenly if they can't get in.
Absolutely. No, anyone who uses ucv.im will continue to be able to use it totally normally, and it will work exactly the same for years to come until we decide to pull the plug.
Yep.
Great. Thanks, Allison. Any other questions or comments? Well, we're interested. Eva and Cecilia, tell us what you think.
Well, confusion for me is that if we have both going, the IM and the CA, will that get us to the same place?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So ucv.im will continue to work invisibly. So if you type in ucv.im/live, it'll bounce you to vanu.ca without you doing anything.
Got it.
Chat.
Oh yeah, just that I've been Googling and in the background, and I discovered that in Hindu culture that Vanu means zealous, eager friend. I thought that was interesting.
Oh,
Positive association.
Mhm.
Anybody else want to comment? So just to answer what Cecilia said, I think there is some hope that maybe people will start to use Vanu in everyday conversation, but that's really up to the person. John?
Yeah, I mean, are we deciding tonight to go with venue as a domain? Is that what we're?
Yeah,
mean,
we're
I don't know. But I don't know if it's our decision to make or not. Anyways, probably. But anyway, if that decision is made to go to venue.ca, which I would support, I think we need to let people know that we've had to create a new domain for all our IT business, and it doesn't mean you need to call us venue. You got to kind of man it just like it's just we needed to do this technically, and the door is still open for how you want to refer to this place and yourselves.
Yes, thanks, John. That's a good reminder, and that's we're hoping to make the decision now rather than wait till then we're into Christmas and then New Year. So we'd like to make the decision now. The board meets next Tuesday if we need to get it approved. And so we would make the announcement. Well, we haven't figured it out, so I won't speculate, but we would get a rollout plan. In fact, I guess our working group is meeting next Monday to talk about next steps. So thank you.